I would like to begin the episode by thanking some nice people. People like Lucas Schenker, Joanna Grave, Steven, there's an exclamation mark there, Max, there's a question mark there, and Joshua Garrity. All of these are people who have gone to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv and kicked us some money. You can do likewise, and you can help support this show and many others like it on the network here. That is patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Trauma Center Second Opinion, which is a simulation game developed by Atlas for the Nintendo Wii in 2006.
Yeah, and big shout out to Tara.
Thank you, Tara.
Executive produced this episode. Thank you, Tara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have history with the series? Did you play any of these?
So I played this on hardware because I owned it, and I owned it because of its reputation, but actually never played it.
Gotcha.
I bought it from a convention at one point because these games had a good reputation, but I kind of missed the boat on them.
Yeah.
And I think that I bought them at the time I was in mid-move, you know, and the old Wii just didn't get back out.
Gotcha.
At that point. So I busted it out for this bad boy of a game. And, you know, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You know, it's okay.
I would like maybe a more polished, more focused, more balanced version of it, probably.
Yeah. There's an idea in here that I like.
Yeah.
You know, somewhere under all the cartilage and like tumors and stuff. You have to dig to it, but there's an idea of something I really like.
You have to cut and then pin back the fascia in order to get into them guts. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm anti-fascia. I don't do that.
That was dumb.
So this game is interesting because even within the series, and we'll talk about the series and stuff, because I think it's probably fair to say we're probably not going to do another one in the series.
Probably.
I kind of feel like I got it. This is kind of a sequel and also kind of a reimagining of the first game.
Yeah, it's like a remake and extension of Trauma Center Under the Knife. Again, the Atlas released like 1 year before this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the big difference is that's on the DS.
Right.
And this is a game where the control method really matters. So the DS version using the stylus and the Wii version using the Wiimote would both really matter to this.
Right.
You play as a rookie surgeon named Derek Stiles, who is a dork. And, you know, you're basically starting off just kind of like learning basic operations. And then you are pulled into this worldwide conspiracy of medical terrorism and, you know, like blood goblins.
Yeah.
Like weird little dragon critters.
Yeah. There are bad people who want to put bugs in you. And you got to hope that there's a magician with a knife who can get the bugs out.
It's weird, like the way that the viruses look in this. It's not Dr. Mario, but it's closer to Dr. Mario than an actual virus. You know, like they look like spore. They look like early spore critters.
They do.
And they're kind of cute, and they just like wiggle around, and they're real like churlish, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's toying with you."
What if there were cavity creeps for the rest of the body?
Yes, all your cavities.
We make holes in stomachs. We make.
Everyone plays this club, Cavity Creep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this game, it goes kind of back and forth between this visual novel style dialogue and exposition that usually tells you who you are operating on and why, and gives the backstory, and then these surgery stages, which, though I called this a simulation at the front, it is very arcadey. It's not going to teach you much about cutting into somebody. Like, don't raise your hand if somebody asks if there's a doctor on the airplane.
Yeah. You don't get course credit for this.
No.
It's real weird where this chooses to be simulation-y and where it chooses to be like a Sega arcade game.
Yeah.
It's also worth noting that the visual novel sections of this are linear.
Yes.
There's no gameplay during those moments. There's no choice or anything. So it's just either you're seeing a little play with cutout figures, or you are engaging in the game. During surgery, you control the pointer with your Wii remote, and you select your tools with the analog stick on the nunchuck. And this is all like kind of one-to-one. Like if you had to make an incision, you select the scalpel, and then you just draw a little line with your Wiimote along that dotted line to cut open someone. It has like Guitar Center, or like not Guitar Center, Guitar Hero Rock Band.
Oh yeah,
feelings.
yeah.
Like the kind of way like Rock Band drums are the closest a video game ever gets to an actual thing. This isn't that close, but it's on that continuum.
Yeah. It's like, okay, to cut into this person, just kind of mimic cutting into the person with the Wii remote. By pointing it on the screen.
Brother.
Yeah, practice on your brother. That way, when it gets to somebody who matters, you know, you might win. You might save them. God bless the sacrifices that your brother made. Yeah, and it's like, it makes perfect sense that this is a launch era game for the Wii, because this is a good, you know, just kind of like use case for like a way to make a different kind of game using a motion control like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is a video game, you're scored. So you get the scoring based on your precision, the number of mistakes, the amount of time you have, and there'll be little Sega, House of the Dead style pop-ups.
Cool.
So it's very funny when you like blast the tumor and it's like, cool. It's like, that was a cool way to pick a tumor up and put it into a tray.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just drain a bunch of bile.
A lot of savoir faire in the way I drive that cytofluid.
It's all in the it's all in the follow through. Yeah. For some of this, it makes more sense than the others. Like if you're doing a suture, like, hey, if you're doing an incision, did you follow along the dotted line precisely? Like,
or did you freestyle it?
Yeah. did you cut into Z? Did you cut it? Yeah. Did you cut your basketball number into the side of this pool?
Did you put in your maker's mark? Yeah.
For sutures, I never figured out what it actually wanted from me. Like at a certain point, you're required to suture so quickly that I basically was just drawing the stink lines that show up around Pigpen and the Peanuts comics.
That's what you do. Yeah. Like you don't have to suture in a way that would actually suture. Like you just make a crazy zigzag, and it's like, cool. There's some thread there. It's awesome. The weird blonde himbo you meet is the one who I assumed was like cheering you on.
Oh yeah.
During all those things, cool. Okay.
You mean the Dr. Death himbo?
Yeah, Dr. Death himbo. The Kevorkian himbo. Kevorkian total twink that you have in Trauma Center.
Oh,
like this is a pretty funny video game, not always intentionally.
Right.
Like there's a bunch of stuff. In the end, there's even this is flash forwarding to the end, but like there's a part where like the medical examiner needs surgery, and he says doctors can't operate on themselves. Some say it's our fatal flaw. I was fucking rolling.
His hand, it cannot draw itself.
Yeah. Some do say that, you fucking weirdo. Like
a lot of doctors talking about what it means to be a doctor, and not a lot of people talking about like enzyme levels and stuff.
Yeah, no. And also just the degree to which your main dude gets roasted.
Oh my god,
is just like very funny.
This is let me say, if you are a humiliation fetishist, you should play this game, because the people are going to rip into you.
Nonstop.
Yep.
Just incredible.
Oh.
When you're playing, you have an assistant, or yourself, like during some chapters, like you'll narrate to yourself. They'll walk you through the order of the operation. But as the game goes on, certain procedures they expect you to memorize because they become commonplace, and they ramp up pretty well.
Yeah.
So this is really like classifying this as a video game or what type of game this is kind of difficult. It's somewhere between like an order of operations puzzle game and a light gun shooter.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's you have to do these things in the right order. And that's really important. And, it'll tell you, and then eventually you memorize that. So doing things in the right order is very important. And they're all pretty simple tasks, but on every individual level, it's almost like a WarioWare task.
Yes.
Like just shake, point, slice, something like that. And then sometimes it just straight up becomes like zapping bugs.
Right. You have to keep a lot of plates spinning, and this involves,
Yes.
you should eventually, if you're playing this, very early on, commit which tool is at which point on the analog stick to memory, because you're going to be like jumping back and forth between, sutures and a disinfectant gel. Sorry, not disinfectant, magic omni gel.
Antibiotic super gel.
Yeah. Or like the suction, because you're going to be kind of jumping around the operation site, dealing with a bunch of things, especially with these parasites, with these things called guilt, that are going to be going around and causing damage that you have to clean up so your patient doesn't die, while you're also doing the multiple steps, quickly that you need to do in order to kill the thing itself.
There's at its worst, it ends up feeling like a getting interrupted simulator.
Yeah.
In some ways, like as this game goes on and as the complexity comes up and the viruses get more pernicious, I genuinely got very frustrated in a way that felt intentional. Like it wanted me to hate these viruses, but just got very frustrated at like, oh, fucking stop it. Like I did the thing. Stop making me do the thing. Like I understand this little goblin is like, really wants to live, but just stop it. I keep getting interrupted by these things, or your assistant coming in to do exposition. It's really weird. Like it simulates a high stress thing, not on the level of surgery, but a high stress, precise, timed event, and then kind of like challenges your concentration during it.
Yes. Yeah. Those dialogue boxes that pop up in the middle of like a very strictly timed section, where it's like, okay, I'm pressing the button. I need to get out of this. I need like, it interrupts everything. And then I have to like, recenter what I was doing. Sometimes
the timer
that ends
stops,
up being,
but it doesn't really matter because the timer is so fucking tight in this. Like we'll talk about it later, but this is a hard video game.
It is. It really is. Even on easy.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to admit.
Yeah, no, this is very difficult. And part of it was playing, partway through playing this is when I got my injury. So it was difficult to play for long periods of time. Once I was able to re-attack it. But also I think it would be difficult even if all my nerves were firing properly.
Yes. Yeah. Two things contribute to that. You have a strict time limit for your patients
5 minutes
for these stages. Yes.
Usually. No. All surgeries have to be done in 5 minutes because if you get to the 5 minute point, what's the point? They're still alive, but like, so what up, man? You got places to be.
Yeah. So I'm up, roll the gurney on down to the graveyard and then just overturn them into a pit. Yeah.
I'm still alive. Like my stomach's open, but I am still alive. Like I just came in with a piece of glass. Before the virus, guys.
Guys. Also, patients have a health bar. They have a vitals bar. As their conditions worsen, the bar will drop, and you will end up needing, usually for me, it was like getting into a cycle of needing to inject them with this magic green goo.
The goo is so funny.
Yeah.
Like it makes so their vitals is represented as like a heart rate or just like a number, and I always read that as a heart rate.
Yes.
And you have a vial of goo, like health stuff called stabilizer, I think, that you just put into people. It just makes their heart rate go up, and you can put it anywhere.
It doesn't matter. I'm operating on your pancreas. There you go.
Yeah, just stick some of this in your lungs, and you're good. And I just kept imagining it as coffee. It's like really making me laugh. Like, just like, here you go, they'll pick me up.
Yeah.
You're just constantly just like putting in, like in this world where you have the antibiotic gel and you have like health drink.
Yeah.
like straight up a magic potion. Amazing people aren't always drinking this stuff. Like I could stand to be more healthy.
It helped it helped Bruce McCullough's character in that one Kids in the Hall sketch where he's the businessman. He rips out his heart and pours coffee on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
just got to get that heart rate up by any means necessary. But that goo rhythm of injecting health goo into various organs is something that is just part of the interruption rhythm to it.
Yeah.
Giving this almost like a Papers, Please feeling to it in some place too. It's like WarioWare Papers, Please Operation Light Gun Shooter. It's very weird.
Yes. Yeah. So things stay grounded for the first couple of chapters. I think that this is where the game is most successful, probably also because it is not balls hard at this point.
Yes.
And by grounded, I mean like the injuries that you address are plausible, right? Like, one of your first cases is somebody who was in a car accident and like you need to deal with their lacerations and also pull shards of glass out of them. Like you get a blues singer who has polyps on his vocal cords. Like, oh, it's like just totally standard stuff. Like that could actually happen.
You just absolutely totally roast a girl who's suicidal.
And it's your awful assistant.
Like you're like doing what could conceivably be called tough love.
Yeah,
your assistant comes in just to bully the suicidal girl.
Yeah, to the point where it might actually like legitimately piss you off the way that it handles.
I was again, my jaw hit the floor because like there's parts of this game, like stretches where the dialogue is pretty boring. And then when it would come in, like where those like doctors can't operate on themselves, or one fatal flaw, or like some line with like that would pop in, it was just always took me by surprise because the rest of it, like there's a lot of it that's very like boilerplate. So when that kind of stuff happens, I was just like, whoa, she really hates the suicidal girl.
Yeah.
Like, it's like she's like a human 4chan or something.
Yeah.
Like she's just like trying to, bully this person.
Yeah. At literally her lowest point. Yeah.
I agree that the beginning of it, when it's plausible and has kind of a sniff of educational to it, while not being educational,
right.
is more fun. Eventually, the terrorists pop in and they're using this series of parasites called the Guilt to fight back against the medical establishment because they think that the medical establishment is interfering with Darwinism. So it's that kind of fascism. Like overpopulation fascism stuff.
Eco-fascism.
Eco-fascism. The game doesn't lose me here because this is most of the game. And like, again, it's all right. But I do think this is less interesting. I think that the people who made this game think Guilt is much cooler than I thought it was.
Yeah. I thought that they just kind of didn't give the human body enough credit for the many entertaining and frightening ways that it can fail.
House. They made a whole show about it.
Yep.
Like if this was about diagnosing and like doing real medical stuff, it would have been. And I understand that's just not what it is.
Yeah.
And
also,
that might exist.
that is a factor in Trauma Team. Actually, like there's a career chain you can go down that is just diagnosis.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Is it diagnosing like guilt monsters or is it diagnosing like house?
I have no idea. I have not read about the story. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's all these various guilts. I was really expecting it to do something with what's called guilt. Like I was just like, why that's got to mean something.
I like Atlas plenty. I don't think that subtlety is the thing that they work with. I think that the name itself being what it is kind of the extent of how they thought through it.
It sounds cool, but it doesn't reflect guilt.
No.
Like I was thinking. So, I mean, this is all Monday morning quarterbacking, this thing, which is ridiculous this early in the episode. But like, what if they were infecting people who they thought had done great crimes?
Yes.
Who had gotten away with it? Like, what if it was like Daredevil or Batman, but like a viral version of that where it's like, oh, your guilt over this murder you got away with. It's called the guilt virus or something, but it's just called guilt for no reason.
Right.
Just, cool acronym. There are a bunch of different strains of guilt, and they act like different kinds of enemies that you need to fight. They each have their own little order of operations and their own like superpowers.
Yeah. And they overtake every operation. Like occasionally there's one or two things that don't really involve them. But after chapter 2, 95% of the things you do in the main story are guilt operations, to the point where, this was a criticism of the original DS version as well. When they added new content to this, the second character that you play as, you get one mission as her, per chapter. None of her stuff has to do with guild, really.
Yeah. And her stuff was kind of where they piloted a bunch of mechanics they would bring into the series later, like different things you would do. To further take this away from the education sphere, your character has a magical gift called the Healing Touch, which is a superpower that's known in this world. Everybody's different. It's like there's X-Men, but they're very specific X-Men. People have different expressions of the Healing Touch. Because the other lady you play as has a different healing touch.
Right.
Your healing touch allows you to slow down time once per operation by making a Christmas star motion with your scalpel.
It's like bullet time, except instead of putting the bullets into somebody, you take them out.
Taking min pain.
I would have said painkiller, but that's another shooter.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think that, so like the in game, they explain it's some Assassin's Creed shit. You are a descendant of Herodotus,
the god
or
of
something.
healing.
Yeah, the god of healing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
It's so funny that everyone has a different healing touch.
Yes.
Like, again, just things in this game that fucking surprised me and made me laugh. I was like, what weird specific X-Men this world has.
Yeah. I said Herodotus. I think he's a philosopher. It's Asclepius.
Asclepius. This is deployed automatically at moments of heightened drama. Like sometimes, your assistant will just be like, oh my God, he's bleeding out. And it will just happen. But you can also choose when to use this as kind of an oh shit button, and you'll need it.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, very difficult.
If you're under sufficient enough stress, drawing a star with your Wii remote will be impossible. I lost so many game overs were the result of me attempting to deploy this, and the star was just slightly too crooked. Like, just a very strict, first grade art teacher.
The Greek god of medicine is incredibly strict.
You have to make an offering. Yeah. An offering of a star.
Yeah, star offering. So Atlas, in addition to changing the controls we mentioned, they added the story, they added that character we talked about, who doesn't do the virus missions. They also skip over a chapter.
Yep.
The final chapter in the DS version is now a cutscene, and they added a final chapter to the game.
Yeah, final chapter where the two characters' stories kind of intersect. This new character is a surgeon named Naomi Kimishima. She was kicked out of the medical field in Japan. She has the healing touch, and she is basically like working on an oil rig with the terrorist organization, like helping them do the research on
keep
the
your test subjects alive.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have one of these for each chapter, one of these missions. After every operation, you get a grade and a point total. Which I ignored.
Yeah.
Entirely,
C gets a degree, buddy.
Game. Yeah, C definitely gets them saved at this point. And it's also, this isn't Crazy Taxi. Like if I did open heart surgery in 4 minutes instead of 3 minutes, I still think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
The aesthetics, the graphics of this are no great shakes, but I'm glad you pointed this out. The music is great out of this. It's a little repetitive.
Yeah.
Every chapter is made up of episodes. Each episode starts with an establishing shot and a musical sting that is good, but it's the same for the whole chapter.
Yes.
Kind of feeling a little bit like episodes of a TV show.
Yes.
But just very short. But it's very funky.
Yeah. Good bass, like real good, Breath of Fire 3 piano jazz going on here.
Yes.
Yeah. And
funky
very,
doctor.
Very earwormy as well. I dig it a lot. I've had it on the background for the past week or so, or ever since I finished the game. So
catchy stuff.
Yeah. The visuals are serviceable within the surgery stages. Like, these are not realistic. Like, it's a big cartoon stomach, 3D modeled, floating in a body void. So this is good. I think that this is the only way you could do it to make an arcade game. If it was just like the inside of the body where everything was just a pinkish gray, that would suck. So it's good for them to just kind of, heighten the contrast and make it easy to, to look at. Also,
Yeah, it's a
make
little
it
bit
not
like you're doing
gross.
VR missions.
Yeah.
Is what a little bit what it feels like. You know, and the people you're cutting open look like dummies. You know, when you do it, like they have like no nipples. They're like
Yes.
Ken doll, you know, proportion kind of thing. So ends up feeling like VR missions, which is probably appropriate because I'm not, you know, one of those surgery wonks.
Yeah.
Like people watch that shit on TV. You know, weirdos.
Yeah.
The writing is wildly inconsistent in this. It is either, it goes back and forth between like pretty funny, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not, and really, really bland, I think.
Yeah.
You know, basically the back half of this, when it kind of becomes a thriller, I was pretty bored by the writing for almost the whole thing. And I got the sense that's when the game thought it was the most exciting. You know, and that did not work for me. There are some exceptions. There are some lines, as we mentioned, that are very funny, and there are some funny concepts and stuff. But for the most part, I cannot really call this like a really well written game.
Right.
I don't know that you play this for the story.
Yeah, either from like the scenario perspective or like down at the point to point, you know, at the dialogue level. Something that I did appreciate is the fact that it didn't fall into the visual novel trap of over explaining everything. Like nobody said, okay, so imagine there's a cat locked inside somebody's abdominal cavity with some radioactive
Schrodinger's
material.
cataract. Yeah.
All of the explanation focuses on like what you need to do to deal with something within the interface. Like it doesn't, you know, have somebody say like, oh, this person has pulmonary edema, and then spend several boxes of somebody describing pulmonary edema to a doctor. It's like, let's get that fluid out of there, buddy.
Well, and just, you know, talking about the origins of it and discover it and all that stuff. Like it doesn't do that, which is great. It's also refreshingly unhorny.
Yep.
Which I love. Like there are topless ladies who you operate on. Apparently the series does not remain this way. Later there's like, you know, I was going to say breast inspection because they inspect people's chest, but I almost accidentally just instinctively said federal breast inspection. Like the ID card.
Like the popular hat. Like the popular hat.
Like a popular shirt stepdad's own. Like that truck stop hat. I know later, like I was reading about the rest of the series on TV Tropes, and they were saying how like, you know, a lot of tropers found it incredibly, you know, gross trope name when you could check out the busty ladies in the surgery van to see if they had tit cancer or whatever. Yeah, it's just, you know, no thanks. But this is pretty chaste.
How much of that is people importing their own horny rather than I will not trust TV Tropes to be the arbiter of what is horny.
I guess that is true.
Yeah.
Like that is a good point.
Yeah, I just if somebody is going to find a mammogram titillating, they're probably going to be there writing around the rules against fetish fuel. Like
no mammogram.
Yeah. So getting into, or one more thing about the aesthetics, the character portraits, yes, they are anime, but it's like a good anime style. Like they're very
chill.
Yeah, pretty chill. Like everything is pretty realistic and detailed. Especially compare this to the original Trauma Center art on the DS. It is such a huge step up.
Yeah. They're way more cartoony.
Yes.
In that. We talked about them adding difficulty options, and we've alluded to it, but we should talk about how hard this is.
Yes.
The difficulty options were added specifically from feedback from the original game of the DS, because that was very hard. This is also very hard on easy. I didn't beat this, which I hate doing for for sponsored games. I know that's like kind of artificial. If somebody is, you know, but if somebody's like paying us to do the game, I'm like, okay, I'm going to fucking beat it. I go into AVGN mode, like, you know, get out the Roland Rock. It's time to beat this game.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do it. And I got too frustrated and just had like, I was like, you know what? I get it. I'm going to watch the end of this.
Yes, same. I petered out on the next to last mission. Which is, you know, I felt bad about, but also it was a Herculean effort. Like I put in a whole session of sitting down to get this done.
It's fucking hard.
It's really, really difficult, man.
I don't know I don't know if this is everyone's experience with this, but for me, I found this, I was not expecting, based on how this was kind of hyped and the reputation, being a Wii launch title is something that you used to kind of sell people on the motion controls. I was very surprised that this is as rigorous as it is.
Yeah, I mean, and we should just as opposed to being vague here. So the time limit eventually becomes a really big thing. Just getting done what needs to get done, especially with the more persistent varieties of the guilt. Sometimes they take a lot of steps. Sometimes they create so many problems that you're going to spend a lot of time cleaning up after them. If you get into, if the patient's health gets low enough, you can definitely be fucked before you realize it. And you end up in this kind of cycle of healing just to maintain a baseline of health. And that takes away time that you could be cleaning up after the mess that the guilt makes, which is causing a bigger drain on the vitals as they like spawn tumors and create lesions and stuff like that. So those are the two ways that it messed me up, was either running out of time or just a bad break getting into those cycles.
Yeah. There's a real kind of poor get poorer aspect to it. As you start making mistakes, you will have more maintenance to do, which will cause more mistakes, which will cause more maintenance. Like the time limit never changes throughout the game, just the complexity of what you're supposed to be doing. And it probably hits a sweet spot about 2/3 of the way through the game where you're having those photo finishes and it feels real cool. Or, you're using your healing touch and it's like, if I didn't have my healing touch, I'd be really fucked. Good thing I have the Greek god of medicine in me. But by the end, it was like, well, I made it because I didn't fuck up early on, but I can't, like, perfect play is not interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's something we say a lot on the show.
The photo finishes are really funny because no matter what, you have to end the operation by suturing the operation site closed, disinfecting the suture site, and then putting a bandage on. So like you could get down to like the last 5 seconds, and you could lose somebody on the table just because you didn't put a bandage on them at the exact right time.
Didn't get a Band-Aid in. Yeah, like they could go to the store and do it.
They just melt into.
Doctor, there's not a CVS within miles. Like, take him to the morgue.
I'm not allowed into Duane Reade anymore. Not after the incident.
Like, it's very silly.
Yeah.
I do really love how you have to end every operation the same way. Like, it ends up feeling like this coda.
Yes.
Like at first I thought that would be annoying because it's so repetitious, but just it ended up feeling this weird, like routinated, like mastery.
Yes.
Kind of feeling.
Yeah. It's also like an easy task too. It's just 3 simple things. It was nice. It reminded me of the basics, Yeah.
Yeah. Fundamentals as a doctor.
Yeah. The development on this was super quick. Like they started in January 2006 and released this in October, I think. That is super fast for Atlas. They like don't do anything that quick.
Yeah, it's fast for anybody. Really. Real quick before we get out of the kind of generalities about the game itself, before we go into development, one thing about the turn of it turning into like alien invaders, like blasting viruses, is prior to that, this felt like a very fun subversion of video games in that, like, this is a non-violent video game by definition.
Oh yeah.
How many games are there where you heal? That's really cool. That's a deconstruction, and like that's something that I would like to see more of in video games. Not why can't Hitman be about giving birthday cakes away, but just in a it's a novel concept for a video game. Yeah,
there was a very bad game released in the early 2000s that was based around this concept, but I would like to see it actually done, be it in an indie or what have you. But a game about being a combat medic, or an EMT or something
cool
like
idea.
that. Yeah, like I don't know, high stress. Like there's probably a way you could do it where it's both sensitive and not gross. Like I would love to see that. Yeah. And I'm somebody who, like, when I do play, like, a Battlefield game or, like, a multiplayer anything, I like being the healer, Yeah,
it feels good.
Yeah.
And when it starts becoming about fighting, little virus monsters, it feels like it undercuts that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you're still healing, but it just makes it feel more video gamey than it did prior to that, like, a little bit more conventional.
Yeah.
So that is the other big bummer I had with the viruses.
Yeah.
Atlas formed the team from this with Megami Tensei designer Daisuke Kanata and Persona 5 art director Masayoshi Suto. And they built this game from the ground up using none of the code from the DS version.
Yes. Like even the individual missions are retooled. They're not exactly the same as they were at the during the time. They added the new playable character partway through in order to differentiate this from the original, just kind of saying like, okay, why are we doing this? Why would somebody who played the original want to get this just to control it in, I'll say it, a worse way than with a stylus, a more imprecise way than with a stylus. Let's say that. So they put that in there, and they also added the difficulty options just because, I mean, especially on the DS, it's a very difficult game. I played it back in the day, like, because it seemed like a really good, kind of demonstration of touchscreen controls, and it is, right? But also, just you hit a roadblock and you can't get any further because it doesn't give you any options for getting around it.
Yeah. Yep. So this game got mostly positive reviews. This is mostly a well thought of game and series, and it sold better in America than it did in Japan. This one specifically, which is not unusual for the series.
Yes.
Trauma Center would continue after this. We have one more DS entry and then another entry for the Wii, and it concluded in 2010 with Trauma Team, which I always read as Trauma Teens, for the Wii, which has more disciplines. So you kind of choose different character classes like emergency medicine, diagnostic, forensic medical investigation. They didn't rest on their laurels, which is cool because, this concept gets fully explored in this game, I feel like, for the most part.
Yeah.
I would like to see a more precise version of it, but I don't feel like just more viruses would be good.
Right.
In this,
Agreed. And also, like, I don't know, like the forensic medical investigation seems pretty cool to me. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. And, just to being a medicine detective sounds fun. So.
Yeah. It's two great things. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it with episode 1, Dr. Styles.
Yes. Because this is a piece of Japanese media, everyone is crazy young. Dr. Derek Styles is just finished his residency. He's a brand new surgeon at Hope Hospital, but is also a gangly 24-year-old. Maybe he's 26, but he's one of those. He's incredibly young.
Yeah, he's a phenom.
Yeah. And you work at Hope Hospital in Angeles Bay. Basically Los Angeles, barely coded, or San Francisco.
Yeah.
California coastal town.
This would end up being a thing later in the series when they drop the pretense of it taking place in America. There are all kinds of like little inconsistencies about what takes place where. We start with our tutorial mission here, the standard procedure. We have our first assistant who is matronly. Before we get the younger maiden form of woman as our assistant here. This is Mary Fulton. She's
matronly at the age, I think she's 32.
Yep.
Just put her in the kit. Just no coffin, please. She's got like age lines and everything, and they get the little bio. Mary Fulton, legendary nursing assistant.
She would barely be an intern in real life. Yeah. But somebody has crashed their motorcycle and they've got glass everywhere in their arm. Horrifying.
Yeah. And super hunk Greg Castle, the lead of the surgical department, who's very coy, comes through. He's offering words of encouragement, saying this actually looks worse than it is, all the while just absolutely roasting you for being late and being a fuck up. When you say he's like, hey, you do the surgery, and you're like, I gotta do my rounds, and Mary Fulton's like, hey, buck up, shithead, you're a surgeon, and it's so funny. It's just very, very strange that you've gotten through medical school and you're this much of a fuck up and everyone hates you.
Yeah, and you don't know when it's like what waits for you beyond being a resident. Like, I need to do my rounds. You're a surgeon. You don't have to do shit.
Yeah. This is, you take glass out of people, dipshit.
Yeah.
I understand it so they can have the arc because he eventually becomes, everyone grows to respect him.
Yeah.
For being a good surgeon, but it takes a long time, and they start off real in the red. With this guy.
Yeah. He's always late. He doesn't dress right for the job. Just a colossal fuck up.
Everyone.
Like to
Everyone's
the
mean
point
him.
where it seems like they just pulled somebody in off the street and told him he was a doctor so they could criticize him
I
for doing it
guess.
wrong.
Yeah, which sounds like a nightmare that I've had. You know, it like sounds like it's like nightmare construction.
Yeah. Somebody
Like,
slaps
this
the
isn't actually
scalpel into
my
your hand.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't. Oh, you have to deliver this baby. You know, in fact, I don't.
Yeah.
So we're not going to every single surgery. We're just going to talk about the elements as they pop up because it's
Yeah.
pretty piecemeal. And if we talk, there's a lot of surgeries in this. If we talk about every surgery, we'll be here all day.
Right.
You know, this first one, you know, we learn about suturing the longer, like kind of lacerations, removing glass shards. I find this like satisfying and fun. You have to do the direction. You have to pull them out the way they came in.
Yes. And then drop them onto the little tray with a satisfying clink.
Yeah, I really like that. And there are deeper shards as well. And this is where we're introduced to the super gel, which instantly closes small wounds.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to be slathering this stuff all over people. Apparently,
Yeah.
this shows up as a high level healing item in Persona 4.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember that, but I saw it on TV tropes, so it must be real.
Yeah. Well, it turned somebody on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be slathered, and they talk about it. They draw a line under it. Like,
Yeah.
aren't medical advancements great? There didn't used to be super gel. Now there's super goo. Moving on to 1-2, learning the ropes. Mary and Greg are both giving you shit for not having your work done, and this is our first tumor operation. We're going to remove a tumor from the patient's stomach using something called the Powell procedure.
Yeah. So you have to
Which
drain
involves
the tumor of its cytoplasm to shrink it down, so you can pull it out without making a bigger incision. However, you still just cut open. It's like a Civil War surgery. It's going to open you up like a FedEx envelope.
You do pretty wide opens.
Yeah.
This introduces ultrasound. Ultrasound is cool because you like ping a location and then the image will fade eventually. So you usually have to do something while it's still on the screen.
Yes.
This will become a big thing with the guilt.
Right.
Drain the tumor, you kind of circle around it before the area gets more cytoplasm. And after we do the surgery, Mary says she's leaving because her husband's reassigned to a different city. And then we're introduced to Robert Hoffman, who I was certain was going to be a villain.
He has big villain energy. Like, he looks like at least 4 different villains in the Phoenix Wright series.
He's also got like a beard that's made out of fingers covered with hair. It's really hard to describe what his beard looks like, but it's like if you covered the skeleton with the finger bone beard in Dark Souls. If you covered all those fingers with hair, is what he looks like.
Yeah.
He's very he's very standoffish. He's the one who's trying to tell you not to use your healing touch. Later.
Yeah.
So he pops in and he says goodbye to Mary. Like, Mary is an institution.
Yes. But in the I guess 15 years that she's been here since she came in as a
Since
nurse's
she was
assistant.
21.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mary mentions, like, oh, Dr. Hoffman, he was a real talented surgeon, but he hasn't operated on anyone since the incidents.
Yes.
We're going to learn about that later on. It doesn't seem that weird to me because people retiring from practice go into administration all the time, actually.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. This game has really weird ideas about what people are justified in being a doctor. It's like it's real gatekeepy about the medical profession. Patient pops in with multiple tumors on the pancreas. This is just us doing the tumor procedure 3 times. This is giving us practice for tumor stuff. We're going to be doing this later.
Yeah.
We meet the kind of secondary character in this A plot, Angie Thompson, who shows up at Mary's going away party.
Yeah.
She is a younger, blonde, surgery assistant.
More abrasive than Mary is.
Way more abrasive.
Yeah. She cuts into you a lot.
She's so mean. Like, she's new and she's just like, you piece of shit. Like, she's so cruel. And she ties into the plot. Like, she's got connections to guilt.
Yes.
We'll find out later.
Right. So we get introduced to her. Our first mission with her is kind of a standout here in the first in the first chapter here, singing the blues. This is where we meet our patient, who is this really whiny rock singer who has a throat polyp that we're going to remove. And he's just
He's really
kind
laying
of,
it on thick.
yeah,
Like,
it's really
what happens if I don't recover? I just work a day job for the rest of my life like a schlub.
which is terrifying. Agreed.
Yeah, sure. But also, this is your doctor doesn't about this. Like,
I understand there are stakes. There are stakes for everybody that I operate on.
Yeah,
sir.
I'm a surgeon.
Uh-huh.
Like the game literally reminds me the patient's life is in my hands
Every time.
every single time I start a surgery.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah. So we need to drain the blood in his larynx, find the polyp, and then laser it off. But once we get inside, and we burn off the initial polyps and gel the horrifying little hole that's left behind, many more show up. Like they just keep on popping up like little pimples. So you have to deal with about 6 of the clusters before the operation is over, with Angie criticizing you the entire time.
Yes. In chapter 1-6, A Real Doctor, we get this little introduction that doesn't connect to the operation. The patient has these tumors on their small intestine and secondary inflammation. So we have to inject anti-inflammatory into these bubbles of inflammation before removing the tumors. The vitals are not stabilizing right away. And Angie is the entire time saying, like, there's something wrong, we should check. And the whole time you're saying, nah, it's fine.
I've got a tea time.
I gotta go. I got tea time. I gotta go. You know, and then afterwards she's like, oh man, the blood counts are weird. And you're like, let's wait until tomorrow. He'll be fine. And then you go to a symposium. You're not even going to a tea time. You're going to another, like, people from out of country are coming to meet you.
Yeah.
You're like, these people, they only work. You're going to work, and she calls you, and just the patient's in critical condition, and just fucking chews you out. Like, this is so, like, man, do you get the shit beat out of you in this game? Verbally. Yeah. Very funny.
Yeah. And like, once you establish that you have magic powers, all of a sudden everybody is fine with you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a message there somewhere.
Yeah. Have magic powers and people will respect you. If you don't, then fuck you.
Fuck off.
So a tumor has appeared behind the patient's lungs and ruptured. And Angie wants you to see the to see the consequences of your negligence.
Yep. Hoffman comes in. This scene is so funny because, again, like, when this game surprises me with being funny, Hoffman comes in and he's telling you he's pretty measured. He's like, yo, you should have been more careful. Angie pops in and she's like, I'm sorry to interrupt. There's something I have to say. And I expected her to, to come to my defense or be like, oh, I, reacted earlier. Like, I looked at the thing, like, because real medicine, you don't check behind every lung for a tumor. It hurts people to check behind their lungs. But she just comes in and just says the same thing she just said to you. Like, she just goes off on you to Hoffman and says how you're the most irresponsible, like, person that's ever been. How can I even be expected to be a nurse with this dickhead in charge? And you're just staying there and they keep showing your little hangdog face. It's very funny. It's so goddamn weird.
What I wanted, that scene in Airplane where the woman is like in hysterics and then somebody's like, oh, I can fix her, and they shake her, and then there's just a line of people going up the entire aisle. People have like crowbars and wrenches and stuff. What I just wanted was that, but with everybody that Styles is disappointed in his life. just going out to take turns at him.
It's like he left a medical gang and everybody gets to beat the crap out of him. So she rubs his nose in it in front of his boss, who is just fine. His boss is like, oh, you should be more careful.
Yeah.
So he goes on a little walk, like he's sad, and he hears about a big traffic accident. He knows that there are no surgeons on the call, so he rushes back to the OR to redeem himself.
Right. So in this mission, life or death, the patient has multiple lacerations and is in cardiac arrest with no pulse. This introduces a very annoying mechanic that I'm glad is only used a couple of times: the defibrillator.
I like that it's, you're using both hands with the Wii and the nunchuck. It kind of feels like that, but the timing on it's very tricky.
Yeah.
And the motion. You have to do motion and timing to stop it like a golf swing, but the acceleration is not steady and it's faster than I expected it to be.
Yeah. So that's funny that it was oversensitive. For me, it was undersensitive. No matter how I moved both hands forward, it wouldn't actually move, to the point where, like, I was like getting up out of my chair and just pushing them forward. Like, when will it accept it? When will it accept it? Marching toward the TV.
Weird. Like, this is a good reason why motion controls are horseshit. Because depending on where my little sensor bar was or where yours was, like, stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
Buttons are great.
I like in the DS version, they say, "Oh, this is not something that you would actually do. Like, you don't actually defibrillate somebody who has a zero pulse." And that one, you actually massage the heart, like you have a little hand tool, and like you basically just do compressions on it until it comes back to life directly on it, and that's like an actual thing that happens. And then they change that for this. So
Yeah, you got to encourage it.
yeah. There you go, good boy.
Here, buddy.
And there are also lots of large shards. Tell them large shards sent you in the pericardium, and they just kind of keep appearing in the sac around the heart.
Yeah. As this is happening, there's this huge like laceration across the heart, and we see this symbol, the star, up here. And if you trace over the star, you do this in. The suturing you do just happens in a split second. Time is stopped for you, but everyone else, it looks like you're going super fast.
Yes.
And Styles decides at this point to stay on as a doctor. And Angie says, okay, but make sure you dress a little bit better. And he's just dressing in fucking scrubs. I mean, Angie.
I can't I can't do every, eventually the Men's Warehouse is going to stop letting me rent the ducks with the tails if they keep on taking it back covered in blood and bile.
Yeah, this is business surgery, not casual surgery, which is on Fridays where you get to wear scrubs.
Yeah.
Like, I have no idea. Angie's like, kind of glad you're staying. And she noticed that you did this magical thing. But that's gonna pop up more later. We're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah.
First, we have to do episode Z1, which is when we do our alternate character working for the bad guys.
Yeah. We're over at another hospital in St. Francis. At first I thought this was a different island. No, this is just in up the coast, actually. We're playing as Dr. Naomi Weaver. This is a fake name. We're going to learn her real name later. The patient who is brought in has a comminuted fracture in his arm. Basically, his radius and ulna are completely shattered. And this is like doing a little puzzle to put the pieces back in the right place in the right orientation. This
is fun. And then you coat it with bone good juice, and the bones just like fuse together. Reminding me of that like Harry Potter with the Skelegro. Which I'm sure I've talked about before, but that little bottle that's shaped like a skeleton with a top hat that you do in case magic removes your bones, which happens all the time in that Nightmare series.
Fucking awful.
This brings us into episode 2. At first, these Z episodes just feel like non sequiturs. It takes kind of surprisingly long for them to really kind of coalesce. I was pretty confused by what I was doing over here.
Yes. Same. But we're in episode 2, The Healing Touch. And Styles is pretty confused about what happened, as you would be if you suddenly stopped time. And of course, he gets chastised for daydreaming during this briefing here for a patient who has multiple thrombi in his spleen. Yeah, he's thrombing it up. So use the ultrasound with clots. You hold them in place with the forceps, make your decision to drain them. And they come at you very fast at this point. So your time stop ability kicks in again, and you can't understand what she's seeing. Yes.
And when you leave, she's a little impressed. Like, she's like, you were like a different person than the OR. And Greg, the hunky doctor, asked to review the tape of the procedure. Once this happens, Dr. Villenbeard pops in and has you come to his office and says that you have the healing touch, which means that you might be directly descended from Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine.
Makes not a goddamn lick of sense.
No. And this is where I thought he was a villain, because he's like, hey, just be a normal doctor. Don't pursue your X-Men power, because if you do, that will break you. And it seems like he's being a villain. Really, he's just like, don't be like me.
Yeah.
Like, I was once an X-Men and it really sucked.
I am a tragic figure. You are going to take on more responsibility than you possibly can, and you're going to assume you can heal everybody when you absolutely cannot.
Also, you won't be able to do surgery on yourself.
He tried. That was the incident.
Yeah. Just fuck. I thought I could do it.
Oh, gosh. So we go to the next mission here, striving for Asclepius. Greg reveals to Styles that Hoffman at one point had the healing touch, and he was a perfect surgeon until this one mistake that he made completely undid him.
And he says, just focus on getting concentration, like improving your concentration, that part of your powers. Don't try to be super surgeon. The operation has you learn to activate your slow time power, so you can draw your star. Basically, just teaching you this. The game has kind of good, tutorializing, but there's never any multitasking. It's very rare that you're learning multiple things. It's like, here's the draw star mission, here's the tumor mission, here's the polyp mission. And then later they just kind of repeat it.
Yeah.
It feels very catechism-y.
Yes.
The way that you kind of repeat things to learn them in this. This leads us into 2.4, Awakening, where the patient has multiple aneurysms in their large intestines. And this is really tough. This is where these vessels in the intestines keep bulging, and you have to keep shooting the feel-good juice, the sedative, into it to stop them from exploding.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's literally spinning plates. They keep on growing, and you have to get them down to size before you can even cut out the bulge and then join the edges of the suture together. Like, these are like little blood vessels. So you're doing lots of very precision things while switching between tools.
Yes. Yeah. And the idea here is they're trying to push you. So they want you to appreciate the healing touch.
Yes.
They're trying to make this so difficult that you have to use it. You have to use it. And afterwards Styles passes out because it hurts him.
Yes.
To do the healing touch. It's like Tim making the tiny tigers. This plot is not really followed up on very much.
No.
It's a big strain to use your superpower.
He eventually just gets used to it enough. I think that this may be like a narrative justification for why he can only do it once.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you wake up a few days later. Greg says, "Hey, don't use your ability too frequently." And we go into 2.6. This chapter, just let me die.
Oh no! Poor woman.
So this woman shows up, and she didn't show up at the hospital because of suicide.
Right.
She has lacerations on her lung. So these need to be closed with forceps before you can suture them, adding a new step.
Yeah.
And she didn't have any external injuries, so nobody knows why she has those lung wounds, but she did have lacerations on her wrist, which Angie has opinions about.
She does, to the point where I want to say, like, if you're a person who has dealt with suicidal ideation in the past, this might actually remind you of shitty people who may have handled you poorly. So, I don't know, skip forward a couple of minutes, mayy.
It's real garbagey, man.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, I totally think it sucks. And I think it's the way that this treatment is funny to me because it's so fucking ridiculous. But
it's over the top and like the wrong thing to do in every single way.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So, we save her. And she wanted to die. We're talking to her and saying like, oh, can you look at the person in the mirror and tell them that you want to die? Can you talk to your family? And then Angie interrupts the same way she did when you were getting your performance eval. And she's like, hey, just go die. There are people here who are struggling to breathe. Like, if you don't, we're wasting our resources and time on you. And I'm like, holy crap. Like, later she gives you shit about bedside manner. I lost my mind. Like, Angie is the fucking worst.
Yeah.
Like,
just terrible.
Incredible.
Telling this suicidal person that, like, man, you are a waste of resources, which, I don't know, a depressed person feels like a lot, actually.
Yeah. It's the opposite of what you should say to somebody who tries to kill themselves and has lung guilt.
Yeah. Wife harm and lung guilt? Yeah.
Lung guilt gave me wife harm.
Oh, God. So, like, she leaves, and this is where Styles has the heart-to-heart with her, about, like, just... you have to live for yourself and not the people putting pressure on you, which, that's nice and all, but what she needs is a psych referral, I think, possibly.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And she decides magically that she wants to live, and says that Styles is a good doctor. This is also bullshit because apparently an overwhelming sense of despair is one of the symptoms that goes along with guilt. So, this is also saying that no person under their own steam would come to the conclusion that their life is worth ending, and therefore,
it's the external, dragon virus,
right? It has to be done to you. So, if you're depressed, buck up. There might just be bugs in you.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Yeah.
the next day, Angie pops in and says Reed reconciled her family. And this is where she introduces a subplot where she's like, well, she's lucky she worked with you and not the death doctor. He pushes euthanasia.
Dun, dun, dun.
And again, it's said the same way if this were like a game about a magic academy, they'd talk about necromancy. It's posed as the dark arts in like a very real way.
They talk about like this person who pushes euthanasia in the same way that the Phoenix Wright series talks about prosecutors. Mm-hmm. Like this is the person who went down the wrong path.
And then when you meet them, they're just a surfer himbo.
It's your friend. It's your best buddy from med school.
Yeah, it's Spicoli. It's fucking Doctor Spicoli Death. First name's Spicoli, last name Death. This takes us into the next chapter. Please let me live. Because Reed's over her silly suicide.
Right.
It turns out it's because of the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
And it finds out she's not taking this antihistamine externally, the stuff that can cause suicidal thoughts. It's being made in her body.
Yes.
So we go inside again
mm-hmm.
To stitch up her lungs. And this is when we first see little tiny creatures pop out
mm-hmm.
of her lungs.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, it's like, oh geez, it'd be fucking scary. The first time a surgeon saw like a little critter like moving around,
like going around,
I
like
would lose my shit.
Creating these perfectly straight lacerations. Yeah,
like they're little shits, like the way they skitter. They're real miscreants.
Yeah, I forget the name of this. We'll see it. Kyriaki is what this is. This is a little thing that goes around causing lacerations. It hides within the organs. So the order is you have to expose them with ultrasound, then use the scalpel to like pry them out of the organ and then zap them with your medical laser to kill them.
Yeah. I call all the goblins in this hemogoblins.
Okay.
Like all of the things. Because I don't want to learn all the different names of all the guilds.
Okay. All right.
They're just all little critters. They're just, little shitheads.
Yeah.
There's a final one. There's a bigger boss bug that is larger than the rest of the bugs. And you have to laser it multiple times like a Mario boss.
Yeah.
It goes back into hiding in the organ. You have to keep finding it and pulling it out.
Yes.
This is going to be such a fucking weird games of service episode because this shit sounds bonkers as hell. Like, if you don't know what this is, like, this just sounds like the weirdest video game in the world.
It does. It's a pretty weird game.
Super weird game.
Yeah.
Lung bugs.
Yeah. So after we suture her back up, like, okay, we think we've dealt with all the bugs, but who knows? Greg and Angie, they talk about the possibility that we just faced up against guilt. It's all in capitals. It's an acronym. Stands for gangliated eutrophin immunolatency toxin, and that's the last time I'm going to say that. Greg says, "Hey, the details of this operation should be confidential. Don't talk to anybody about this."
Yeah. And in the way that the pacing of the storytelling of this and how it doesn't work as a mystery, you're immediately called into Hoffman's office to verify that it's guilt. Like that should have been a slower burn. Like this case should have happened earlier. There should have been a return to normalcy.
Yes.
But we learn that by successfully treating Reed with the healing touch, you've drawn the attention of the World Health Organization subgroup called Caduceus. And they want you to join. And these are like maverick super surgeons who want to cure every disease in the world.
Right. It's like SHIELD, basically, but for, doctors.
Yes.
Yeah.
The people who are infected with guilt receive a letter prior to their infection about how death is being denied to those who seek it. Again, with that euthanasia theme, but they're not necessarily deserving people.
Right.
It's not people who should be guilty. And the doctor is like, I don't know if you should do this. And later he's going to discourage you from joining Caduceus, which made me think that, again, he's a villain.
Right.
But he's good.
Right. So this takes us into the mission for the greater good. We have a patient who has a mitral prolapse and regurgitation, just referring to one of the heart valves. We need to cut out the bad valve and replace it with the synthetic one. This is good. I like this mission a lot. It's like one of the last involved non-guilt missions that you have to do. Like the heart goes into arrhythmia, like the paddles come back, but it's still, this is refreshing compared to what we're going to see later with just guilt after guilt after guilt.
Yeah, you're not fighting goblins.
Right.
Which is great. The Styles is comforting the patient after the patient's mother, rather.
Right. It's a young
saying,
woman.
The modern medicine means her daughter will recover more quickly. And he has a little flashback to his father's terminal diagnosis. And this is what makes him decide that he wants to join Caduceus.
Yes.
Accept the offer because he wants to heal as many people as possible. Which it does make you count as a real doctor in the keeping world of Trauma Center.
Right. So he accepts the offer. He goes to Hoffman, goes against his advice, and now he is going to be a part of this elite organization. We cut to Z2 Miracle. We're back with Dr. Weaver. She's briefed on this new patient. This is a guilt victim with a large tumor in their intestine, and you will need to use her healing touch. This is the first time you do it as her healing touch. Instead of slowing time, every correct action that you do will restore some vitals while it's active. If the patient is bottoming out, you just activate this, and even just gelling something will cause them to rise back up. You don't have to take time to use your little feel good juice.
It's very similar to Star Mode in Rock Band.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, I'm going to do this, and it's just going to get my combo back up and save me from dying.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's not a whole lot to this. It's like severing little tendrils on a tumor to get it out, and then there are more, progressive tumors.
Of course.
This leads us into episode 3, Caduceus. Styles meets the director of U.S. operations, Sidney Castle, at Caduceus HQ. This is Greg's brother. And they look identical except with different haircuts.
Yep.
One of them puts his hair back and puts his hand in front of his face a lot, and the other one just looks like a sly hunk. So, and we meet this kind of new cast of crew. New cast and crew of this hospital. We meet Richard Anderson, the only person with any BMI in the entire game, who's the current Secretary of Health and Human Services. Stephen Clark's the chief surgeon, and Sybil Myers, the anesthesiologist.
Right.
Later, there's a researcher we're going to learn, and then also the himbo, and that's the Caduceus crew.
Yeah. Sybil Myers, importantly, used to be a cop. We're going to find out when this gets to be much more high flying than you believe it might be. And they say that, hey, we are right on the verge of this guilt outbreak. So it's really important that we have as many people as possible ready to try and nip it in the bud. And it's funny that there's about to be a guilt outbreak because, if everybody is getting a letter, it means that everybody is being manually infected, which is not how outbreaks work.
No, absolutely. It's very weird. It's not really an outbreak. They're targeted assassinations. I also think it's weird that Angie comes with you and why is she invited to the Secret Society of Healers? She just started.
You're a package deal. She hates you. She hates you, and she does not. She does not want you to be beyond her grasp. Yeah.
She literally says that, but I just don't know why Caduceus goes along with it. The Dr. Fingerbeard was like, I'm losing 2 talented people. This sucks at the going away party because he's a petulant little baby and I'm sure he's going to be a villain. But no, it's just we just lost Angie because, package deal. And I know why she wanted to come. It's because she knew about guilt, even though she's denying it.
Yeah.
She has a history with guilt.
Mm-hmm. We also overhear somebody that Styles knows, Tyler Chase. This is the surf himbo. This is somebody that he went to med school with.
Yes. Yeah. This takes us into mission 3-2 guilt. This is very similar to the guilt patient we worked on previously as the Kiriaki hemogoblin. And they want to observe you do the operation and observe your healing touch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's literally just kind of the same thing. There's dialogue that okay, they administer these things called chirality tests to determine the presence of guilt. Angie seems interested in this. This is basically just the way that they break the news to you that guilt is involved. Yes, the chirality is off the charts. We got to get one of these hemogoblins out. Or, oh no, we're not done. He's still testing chirally positive. It's like the plot the plot device that they use to let you know when there's still work to do.
Yeah, when you can be done.
Yeah.
You know, and Angie loves this. Mm-hmm. Like she's just like, So Styles goes into Tyler's office looking for him. It's empty, but she sees this again, parts of this game that made me laugh. He sees some of his files, which he talks about how much he loves euthanasia. There's all this drama. Like, I can't pretend like I didn't see your euthanasia diary. You know?
And like, you think, oh, so his happy-go-lucky demeanor, maybe that's just a front. Maybe he's got this dark psychopathic kind of thing. No, we're going to find out that's not the case. It's like, fuck.
And he works for like the secret society of super doctors. You know, like this game's attitudes towards euthanasia are very strange.
Yeah.
And also I know we keep calling him a surf boy and stuff. You got to look up a picture of this dude if you're never going to play this game. He looks like Jeff from Maniac Mansion.
He does.
Like big, happy blonde energy.
Yeah.
Like he's not in the Dave Matthews Band, but he's not in the Dave Matthews Band. Like
if he's not on the stage, he's in the crowd,
Yeah, Rusted Root adjacent.
So Tyler takes you to see, the reason why he's here. His little sister Amy, who's been hospitalized with guilt for 2 years, and she's here with her nurse Leslie Sears. Styles confronts Tyler about his papers, saying like, how could you? We're supposed to keep people alive. Instead of being like a secret psychopath and like a cartoonish, just a straw man against euthanasia, he explains this very reasonable case that got him to exploring it, talking about a terminal cancer patient who had no chance of living with any quality of life, or didn't have any chance of escaping just agonizing pain. So wouldn't the compassionate thing be to end it as peacefully as possible? Which people who listen know the Duckfeed pro euthanasia, at least in a video game stance. But like they pick the textbook example.
Like we are more warm to euthanasia than most podcast networks probably. I don't know what Jordan or Jesse's word is on people going.
Right.
But for us, like at the very least, it's a debate.
Yeah.
Like this game just like treats it as like the secret thing you have to hide in your files and isn't even an idea to entertain. Like Styles he ain't hearing that. Like he literally does the like, I'm very happy for you or sorry for you, but I ain't reading that response. He just says, yeah, you're not going to euthanize your sister. I'm her brother now. Yeah. I get to choose.
Which is like, why would he think about euthanizing his sister? Like,
yeah. Yeah, he was just going to do it for fun. He surely hasn't considered this.
So, of course, because we've been introduced to a new character with guilt, the next mission has to do with them. It is something precious. Amy's condition has sharply declined. Tyler doesn't want anyone to operate on her until he hears Amy beg Styles to operate.
Yeah. This is a new type of guilt that pops up. The Deftera. This pops up in. And these are named after the Greek days of the week.
Okay.
By the way, there's 7 of them. So these are tumors that replicate really, really fast that they seem to move. But the type A and the type B strains of this will hold each other still.
Yeah.
So it kind of moves around generating these tumors, and you have to drain them when they meet.
Yes. Very specifically to wipe both of them out. The individual type A's and type B's, if a type A meets with a type A, it will make a new tumor. If a type B meets with a type B, it'll make a new tumor, but it will not be vulnerable. You have to kind of like hope that they collide with each other. One thing that I read was that you can use the healing gel as a way to like corral them in together.
Oh, interesting.
That did not work for me. So it was just kind of like,
I didn't think to try that.
It was just kind of waiting for them to collide. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what it's like when tumors collide. So this moves around to different organs.
Yeah.
When we go to the lungs, there are 2 pairs of these, 2 A's and 2 B's. Very, very difficult. And the timeline has not changed for this.
Right.
after you do this, Tyler's like, "Hey, Styles, do you want me to turn me in?" Or like
Turn
I
me into the
now
medical
see that you were
cops?
right about this incredibly complicated ethical issue. Do you want me to go to jail forever? And Styles says, no, just erase your philosophy, like re-edit your thesis and put your findings to good use to eliminate suffering for once, you piece of shit.
That's what he was trying to do in the first place.
Like, so funny. What it reminded me of when Amy, when the sister was like, no, I want him to operate. I have hope now.
Okay.
It reminded me of one of those like God's Not Dead style movies.
Oh, like the Christian propaganda stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, like where like, the ghost of an aborted baby comes back and like begs not to be like ended or something. Like taking like an ethical, something that actually, I have a strong opinion about, but I would admit that there are two sides to the argument.
Yeah, yeah.
And just being like, no. Here's the fantasy wish fulfillment straw man version of the other side of it. Mm-hmm. Up until she met this dipshit, it took a 26-year-old, like a 26-year-old who doesn't comb his hair for me to want to live. Like,
God damn.
yeah.
Just
Incredible
like
stuff.
like a light switch. So sometime later, Sydney calls you in. This is again Greg's brother. Calls you in to review your footage before a conference. We're interrupted by the character with the stock sarcastic face that pops up in certain kinds of anime. This is Victor Niguel. He is the head of Caduceus Research. Like, he's the person who makes all the medicines that you use.
Yeah. Yep. We go to a conference and the leader of Caduceus Europe gets up to speak to the group, speak about the group behind Guilt, which is known as Delphi. They found an abandoned lab in an African village. So that's going to be a place we're going to head to soon.
Yeah.
But first we do 3-6 that night. As the conference is ending, someone takes over the PA system. They've planted a bomb to kill the doctors, so people will stop living their unnatural lives. And we do surgery on a bomb.
Yeah, we defuse it.
Yeah. Which is pretty fun. Dr. Myers shows up and she's like, "Hey, I dated a guy from the bomb squad when I was a cop. I'm going to walk you through this."
Yeah.
And it's a really like refreshing change of pace.
It is, yeah. I also love the way that she explains why she, why this came up. She says like, "Oh, you be like it's crazy what cops talk about with each other," or something like that.
Yeah.
But this is good. It's like it's a 4-stage process. It's different than the one that's on the DS. I like this one just a little bit better, just because it's a little bit more dynamic than cutting wires and stuff. And it starts with a puzzle. Like there's a case on the outside of the bomb that is screwed on, and if you turn the screws the wrong way, it gives you a strike. And if you get 3 strikes, then you're out. So you need to like decode the markings on the casing itself in order to get the case off of it, to know which direction to turn which screws.
Yeah. Yep. Inside you pull and place these pegs to change the voltage. So you can bring up this like Shadowrun-esque hexagonal like floating sphere.
It's like a core, like an antimatter core. This thing.
Yeah. It does zap the shields when they're not glowing. And then attack the core while it's like a Star Fox boss.
Yeah. It has like these rings that circle around it. You have to shoot when the rings are not in the way. Yeah.
After doing this, no time to bask in your fame, you get called to go to the abandoned lab in Africa.
Right.
Moving to chapter 3, Caduceus on a plane. Tired of these motherfucking Caduceus on this motherfucking plane.
Which is funny because the popular conception of a Caduceus is that it is the staff with the 2 snakes. Yeah, that's not actually the Caduceus. Yeah, snakes on a plane.
But that's a joke. That's
a joke. Sorry. I'll cool my jets. It's fine.
When I was back in my band days, we used to do a thing once a year where our bands would cover another band. And I had a band with Brayton and my friend Ryan with 3 keyboards called Joystick Joy. And we did Supertramp one year. And we were doing Goodbye Stranger. And I always snuck like a snake without a plane.
Ooh.
Into, like the part where it's like, like a king without a castle, like a star without a ring. I always snuck with it like a snake without a plane into there because it was the mid 2000s.
Of course. Yeah.
And also I like that as a metaphor.
Oh, yeah. For no purpose if you don't have a plane for your snake. Come on.
Also, I've seen snakes on a plane and it's pretty funny.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is, like that got parodied to death and everything, but that's a pretty funny movie, like intentionally. Like just opening up luggage bins and just fucking
snakes everywhere.
Snakes fall out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The House of Thousand Snakes style.
It was made. You keep on saying House of a Thousand. It's Room of a Thousand Snakes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You haven't played the sequel?
God, Arcane kids are so good.
I love it.
So I just remember like sitting in, it was like calculus class or something like that, and just like a friend said, hey, did you know that somebody that they were making a movie called Snakes on a Plane? And like that was just such an inherently funny phrase that we just laughed for minutes. And like it was one of those it was like with the Giraffe Town laugh where like every time we tried to stop, somebody else would start the cycle again.
Yeah. Because it has the cadence of an expression that means something. But the more you think about it, the more it breaks down. Yeah. Because it's what are they doing up there?
We didn't have a lot going on 14 years ago.
No, this is prior to real problems for us. We're on a plane here, and right as we take off, the pilot calls for a doctor because somebody has respiratory edema and need to have their lungs drained. So you get to do a little surgery on the plane that has nothing to do with guilt.
Yes.
Using ultrasound to find the fluids, cutting them open, draining them up. And the kind of twist here is there's turbulence.
Yes.
So the plane will shake every once in a while. And if you try to do anything while it's shaking, you cause a laceration.
This is cool and realistically stressful. I like this mission a lot.
Yeah. And it's something I always see in movies, like is there a doctor on the flight, but I've never seen in real life. So it's cool to like live that out.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's like hilarious. Like I failed this mission because I didn't realize how the turbulence worked, and I'm just rubbing the ultrasound around. And there's all of a sudden, just immediately,
like you're the poke of Zorro.
Yeah,
like you just fucking.
I might as well have been running a chainsaw around. Like, now tell me, is this where the fluid is?
Yeah. You land at the village, and we spend a long time looking for the lab until we find a young boy who wants to help us find it.
Right.
This boy's named Ruben. Unfortunately, he gets guilt.
Yes.
And it's this brand new strain.
And this is the puzzle boss. It is these blue thorns and these green triangles. These are the Deltari, I think is the name of it. Something like that. And you have to pull the pegs out in the correct order in order to stop the triangles from spreading. And the more an organ is covered by these things, the faster the vitals will drop. Yes.
And the triangles will grow into a grid if there are two thorns next to each other. And sometimes they explode into gas, which you have to vacuum up. And previous to this, we'd only use the gas for like liquid. And this visually, like there's some color puzzles later that did not fuck with me. The gas did not stand out very well to me.
Very poorly defined borders on it.
Yes. Yeah. So this was difficult. The director of Caduceus Europe contacts you and says this is derived from a technology that they attempted to develop to try to stop cancer growth. It couldn't differentiate between healthy and cancerous tissue, so it petrified organs. They stopped this development because they'd made like the Medusa syndrome or something, but Delphi got a hold of it.
Yes. So this kind of brings a little bit there's somebody who is giving them research, the fruits of the research here. I really don't like the Deltari. I eventually got better at them, but it is very poorly explained in the game how you're supposed to deal with it.
They're pretty annoying.
Yeah.
But there's a good, funny bit that took me by surprise here, because after the operation, Ruben gives you a file folder, but all the characters think he's giving you a book. And we spent a lot of dialogue on this, and I was just thinking how funny it would be if Ruben was like, thank you for saving my life. Here's my book. It's kind of an adult Harry Potter, but in space. Imagine if Superman was bad. That is what I like to imagine in this book.
if Ruben is trying to break into the toxic YA author scene.
Yeah.
I tell you, there's nothing but haters out there trying to bomb my Goodreads.
And you have to go inside the body of the Goodreads and zap them. And I love that nobody can recognize a file folder. It's treated as a reveal. Like it's like, oh, it's a book. Wait, exclamation point, shocked animated face. That's not a book. It's a file folder. Like, come on, guys. So fucking dumb.
Yeah. But Ruben's brother worked on the research here. And he managed to grab a hold of it here. So Styles is called back to the U.S. immediately because Greg, Casal, his old boss, has been admitted to Caduceus America with a new strain of guilt.
Yes. We don't get to do this yet. We are on a cliffhanger. We go into our Z3 mission, where an investigator is tailing Dr. Weaver and her handler, and gets into a car accident, like a paparazzo or whatever. And we have to save his life in a dark tunnel.
This is really cool.
Light.
I love this.
Yeah, this is spooky. There's a lot of discourse around how you can't put him in front of the headlights. You have to use this little flashlight and then a camera flash to kind of memorize where the wounds are. This would later become part of the series. All the things in the Z missions are like pilots.
Yes. Yep. Like it quite a bit. Also shows that Weaver's not a bad person. Just got caught up in a bad situation. She still has the medical ethics.
This brings us into episode 4, Bioterror.
Yeah, which is what it's been for the past couple of chapters, but okay.
Still,
Bioterror remains.
So we're back in Angeles Bay, and we find out that Greg is infected with an unknown guilt strain. He was attending to a guilt outbreak when he got infected, so now it kind of jumps. It's not just the letter thing. I love Greg's sick sprite. It looks like Harry Nilsson. Like he's like kind of hunched over and he's got this real shit-eating grin on his face for some reason. Like it's very funny.
Yeah.
And we find out Caduceus is working on a serum to kill the guilt, but they need more antigen samples. So we get to chapter 4.2, Race for the Cure.
Yeah. So there are several different places where you can go on the map here. This is different. Like usually the map just indicates where you're going to be headed to. These are different places where people are suffering from guilt. Each one has a person who you need to extract the new guilt from.
Yes, to get all the different, collect them all. The new guilt is called Tatari. This is a good note. It does look like a Gen 4 Pokemon. And like this little cute little critter. It moves around, pooping out little toxic gases. And you have to stun it with serum, then cut it open and take its goo from it. And make sure you get all 3 antigen types.
Yes. Yeah. So eventually this will become a color matching kind of thing because you have to inject them with the correct antigen. This ends up being just a little bit of a crapshoot because there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to accomplish this just with 3 operations.
Yeah. So you might have to do more.
Yeah. Might get duplicates.
Back at Caduceus, Victor has synthesized a serum. We had to wait for this to work. And after that, we're going to remove the guilt from Greg. We get to chapter 4.4, Stepping Up. Greg tells Styles, gives him a big speech about ignoring his personal relationships, in the operating room. Like, I'm nothing but a patient. I don't want you to end up like Hoffman, who, got too attached to one of his subjects. And this is where we have to do the color matching. We have to use the right serum on the right tumors. This was a crapshoot that this worked. This could have been where my time with this ended. Very easily.
Yeah. And it might be the time for you because, different kinds of color blindness.
Yep. I could differentiate these okay.
Yeah.
But this is probably a part of this that would be more greatly differentiated if this game were made now.
Yes. Yeah. There'd be a different way to do it. And this just ends up being, more steps to do. And it's really more about selecting the right tool at the right time than anything else. It's pretty generous once you get the injection in, how long it stays stunned for you to do your thing. Yeah.
The leader of Caduceus US is giving out this interview on the street and he collapses with chest pains. Turns out that he also has guilt. HQ gets a letter from the terrorist. Maybe it got postmarked wrong or something, so they get it late.
Maybe.
A reverse warning.
Fell between the seats, Mr. Grisman.
Yeah. And this is takes into 4.6 with a new kind of strain called Pempty. We don't know how to chase this, how to treat this. So this ends up, this is our arc with Victor, the researcher.
Yes. As we just keep on cutting this fool open, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just maybe this color goo will do it.
So we open up and we find out that his lung is full of an unknown fluid, and no tool will work against it. It won't suck up just fine. You can't cut it. It's just right there in his lungs. What Victor needs to do is program a nanomachine in order to make it vulnerable, right? We are in the future, so nanomachines are in play. So we alternate between failed surgeries on this dude and then little puzzles that you have to, like little shape matching puzzles.
Like pentominoes.
Yeah, pentominoes is a great way to put that, where you have to kind of take and rotate these things and put them onto a grid in order to match the larger shape.
Yeah. And this is full of Sundeer stock character laughs as Victor gives you shit and claims credit and stuff.
I expect you to take a while, but come on, man.
Yeah. It's been a while since someone just absolutely treated Derek like something like holding a turd by the corner.
Yeah.
You know?
Just owned you. It's been a while since Derek got owned.
Yeah, absolutely humiliated for sexual gratification. So it's good that Victor's here just to like absolutely give you shit.
Yeah.
It is very funny. It's like he's like getting combat data.
Yeah.
Like he's opening you up, having you open up this guy and inject him with goo so he can get the results.
Yeah.
And then they just close him back up and it just kind of keeps happening as if there aren't labs.
Right.
As if like there aren't petri dishes in this world.
You take a sample and use different parts of it, dude.
Like my lungs are not a petri dish, Victor.
No, Victor, come on. So Victor has put together this new laser that will let us actually damage the core. And then once the core is actually kind of cornered and exposed, this turns into kind of a shmup, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real weird. It releases these little waves that do damage to the lungs in different ways, either lacerations, tumors, or like direct damage to the vital signs. And you have to laser these little cores. This is where it's the most like a kind of light gun thing. And then also fix the messes they do.
Yes.
That they make. And, inject them full of feel-good juice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, between the waves. This is fun. Apparently this gets people who try to speed run the game, like these are the most frustrating missions because you can't rush it at all. Like it's kind of like an auto scroller kind of thing is my understanding about it.
I can see that.
Yeah. And then not even just for speed running, but like trying to ace a mission if you're trying to ace it or get the SA rank
really
or
good
whatever.
Scores or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep. Master surgeon.
So after this operation, all that we can do is hope that this Health and Human Services Secretary is going to recover. He wakes up 3 days later, but he's not going to make it. Probably because somebody kept on opening him up.
There was a lot of unnecessary surgery land going on with him. He wakes up and he wills Caduceus HQ to Hoffman, who I was certain was going to be a villain. Like, I'm like, oh, this guy's certainly working for, but he doesn't want to do it because he's such a, he's so grief stricken. And he eventually just goes, okay, and does it. It's not a very good arc or anything.
Nobody's in control of their own fate in this. They have to acquiesce to it.
After this, we get another Z mission, Z4 transplant. Dr. Weaver is waiting for a new kidney for a guilt-stricken patient. She's being ordered around by a professor whose face is covered in shadow. These are, Delphi ne'er-do-wells.
Yes. Yeah. Eventually going to be important characters in the final chapters here. And this is a transplant. First, we have to remove 2 of the guilt tumors that we've dealt with before. And then we have to cut out the old organ and put the new one in. And then make the connections on the blood vessels and even attach the ureter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And afterwards, like we get some story stuff. Weaver is talking to her handlers like, hey, I don't understand. Like, what is Delphi doing? Are you trying to save mankind or wipe it out? And the shadowy person says the planet cannot sustain 7 billion meaningless lives. It absolutely can.
Yep.
Eco-fascist piece of shit.
Yep. Yeah.
You're all doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, there's a lot of money going on into this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to say doctors don't necessarily deserve their payment, but there are doctors who make more money than one can earn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they make it because of the ridiculous education fees to get them there and stuff. It is all a fucking dumb shell game. And
yeah, no,
that should be a problem.
just like everything is. But it all goes back to Malthus was wrong, dudes.
Yeah.
He was wrong. There's such a thing as carry capacity. Like,
this moves us into episode 5, which is called It Never Ends. And this is where the game lost me.
oh, yeah.
I was like, man, I'm getting sick of this. And then episode 5 comes up and goes, it never ends. And I'm like, okay.
Okay.
I was just sick of fighting. I was just sick of fighting these little goblins.
Uh-huh.
And it's also where it gets really hard. This is our first multi-surgery.
Yes.
And these fucking blow.
Mm-hmm.
So we start off, Hoffman is addressing the Caduceus team. We get an alert about an outbreak. We go to the site and we have to start Hoffman decides to operate, and we have to do 5 patients in a row with the level 1 guild.
Mm-hmm.
We have 10 minutes. So keeping in mind, previously we had 5 minutes for one patient.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're down to 2 minutes in a real, if you take up too much time on the first one, you can really fuck yourself. Yeah. And these aren't that difficult, but it's starting a precedent of the last patient or last 2 patients dying on me of this stuff.
There is a mercy that is extended to you. You only have to save 3 of the 5 in order to pass. They do not communicate this to you, though. So if you are somebody who is saying, all right, well, it took me 3 minutes to cure the first one, I'm not going to have enough time to get all this, and you restart, you probably would get real frustrated if you got to the 3rd and then all of a sudden, well, whoops, sorry, we lied to you. There's actually a backup. You're good now. You're gonna get a bad rank, but if you're just playing to see the story, well, that's why pencils have erasers.
Well, it's just not that interesting to me to do this thing I've already done faster.
Right.
Like something like this is weirdly comes up a little bit in Shadow of Mordor, which we're doing at the end of the month, but this is a very broad statement I'm going to make, but I kind of stand by it. I think I've decided I don't like being timed in games. Like, I don't think a time limit is an interesting way to add things. I talk about you hit the button and then the door opens and you have to do this little thing before the door closes.
Yeah.
Bullshit. I never like that. But even this, I just want to do it. I don't necessarily want to try to do it fast. It's just not an axis which I take very much enjoyment from.
Rank me on it, but don't fail me if it takes too long.
Well, rank me on it if it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
But it's never something I'm going to pay attention to.
Right.
It's not adding value for me. And I was thinking about this with any of these, any video game where that is kind of a factor. When I played Hotline Miami, I could go for combos, but never for speed.
Right.
I would try to do stylish kills because that's cool, but never just doing it faster.
Yeah.
I
think I can broadly get behind you on that.
Yeah. This bums me out because eventually this game kind of runs out of tricks. You're fighting the same kind of guilts. It's just, how about you do more of them, or they're more pernicious?
Yeah. Or they're in combination, or but just eventually they only have a couple of different ways to make the missions harder because they run out of ways to make them more interesting. Yes, exactly. So it just ends up becoming kind of repetitive in a way that, and also I'm not that excited about the plot in general. I don't think that I don't think Delphi is cool, right, or interesting, really. So it's the gameplay at this point is kind of not really engaging me very much, and I'm not that interested in the story. I was more into it up until this point. Yeah, I think. At this point, it's just kind of in a bit of a holding pattern until you get to the final chapter and stuff, which is weirdly disconnected from everything else. It's because it was written just for this game. Yeah. It was not the original final chapter. Yeah. So after we do just basically a whole bunch of karaoke fights in a row, we get to mission 5-3 here, Shifting Guilt. There are people outside of the quarantine zone who are collapsing with guilt-like symptoms, and Tyler makes the horrifying discovery that it's a new strain that is possibly airborne. It is not a new strain. This is just a tougher version of the Tritty grid problems. The ones where you have to pull out the thorns. Yeah. It is just that they're more prone to turn into gas when you take them out.
Yep. So you have to vacuum them quicker.
Yeah.
This moves us into 5-4, Guilt Evolves. A case of Tatari has been confirmed nearby. And Styles is called in to operate. It's like the other Tatari, so these are the color matching dudes, but you just have to do it more times.
Yeah.
That's the other thing this iterates on a lot, and I'm just not that interested in.
Yeah. What if you had to throw Bowser off of the arena 5 times instead of 3?
Yeah, instead of 3. Yeah, and like 3 is already not that interesting.
Yeah.
You know, that Mario bossness of it is not that interesting. Sydney gets a call from the Human Health and Human Services guy, or the department, and they want him to abort his shipments of anti-guilt medicine to public hospitals because the pharmaceutical industry is getting pissed. So Sydney sends out files on how to deal with guilt instead. That could have been a theme for this game.
Could have, yeah. Pharmaceutical industry coming in, undercutting the efforts. Yeah. No, instead just this little grace note, a hint at a better thing.
Yeah, it's minor.
Yeah.
The medicine and plans work. But by going over everyone's head to avert the crisis, Sydney became a hero, and Caduceus is now untouchable politically. Like these maverick doctors did the right thing.
Yeah. Loose cannons who get results.
Exactly.
Yeah. That night, there's an alarm that goes off in the hospital. Delphi is sending their goons in, their hired goons. There are some intruders, and we corner one of them. And it is actually the shadowy professor guy from the Z segments. Angie is so shocked to see him that she freezes and accidentally lets him get away.
Maybe something to do with her past.
Ooh.
Myers managed to get a picture of the professor, but she collapses in pain because the professor injected her with something. And this starts 5-6 infection with this new strain, Paraskevi, which is this tiny little snake guy. You have to freeze him by hitting him in the tail. It's very Zelda. With a laser, and then cut him in half. And then there are now 2 smaller snakes. So you have to make them small enough to pull out, and they're too big initially. So you have to just kind of keep splitting them into smaller versions. But as they're doing this, they're burrowing deeper and deeper into organs. And their goal is to get to the heart. If they get through enough organ layers, they get to the heart and they'll kill the patient.
This is hectic and scary, but the problem is the only way to make it more interesting or more difficult is to start you with fewer layers to the heart until eventually just like, we're going to start you on the heart. And if you see one of them start circling to burrow, you're fucked because now your patient is dead immediately.
If you don't zap that, you're done. The photo that Myers took, we take a look, and this is Professor Blackwell, who was missing 10 years ago. This is Angie's father, of course.
The FBI has figured out, hey, Blackwell is operating out of this research lab called IDOF, and they're raiding the lab, and they want Styles to be there. And Angie insists on coming along, despite the obvious and wild conflict of interest.
And that you're a surgeon's assistant.
Well, yes.
Like in this world, surgeon assistants have more prestige than I think they do in real life. So we go to the labs and we find a man who is infected. He insists that we should save Blackwell instead of him, but we decide to operate anyway because we're a doctor, our hippopotamus oath. He has this new strain with a bunch of bugs erupting from these lacerations in his lungs. He's got bug lung. And you have to zap him with a laser. Which at this point, like, they have gotten rid of any sense that the laser is burning flesh. Like, you are just taking this laser and sweeping the entire lung with it. It's just a gun. At this point. And sometimes there's a big blue bug that causes the vitals to plummet while it's alive. But this is mostly just disturbing. Like, I don't know. I get pretty weirded out by the idea of having bugs inside you, and that's kind of what this game is all about. This is the most visceral version of that, where it is just a swarm that is nested. It's the idea of like eating, you chew bubble gum and it has spider eggs in it, and they hatch inside you. As you do. As you do. That's why you don't swallow gum, kids. This moves us on to 5-9, Death Awaits All, where we corner the professor. And he says that we are nothing against his ultimate strain, Savato, which he's infected with. And this is kind of our boss virus. Savato is a spider that makes a web inside. So we're like so outside of medicine. That weaves a web that harnesses the energy of heartbeats.
Yes.
So you have to cut through these strands of the web, but the web is made of some kind of acid that melts your scalpel, so you can't use it for a little while.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you have to keep on cutting as you wait for you cut, and then you have to wait and do other stuff while you wait for a new one to be delivered to you, hoping that the Parvati does not weave another one. So it is a race against this thing as it builds out the web. You have barely enough time to get back to cutting once you get a new scalpel here. So after you cut the web apart, you enter the second phase here, where you have to use your laser to get rid of the shielding several times, as it cuts the heart and spawns more of these baby bugs. This is tough because there's not an awful lot of feedback about how much progress you're making on it as it cuts down. It's actually pretty frustrating. To determine once the shield is down, you have to cut it with your scalpel to kind of make it vulnerable.
And we're just doing this, just trying to fight things. We don't have an end game in sight. Once we've done this twice, though, Victor shows up and has a serum that'll kill the bug. So we do the long deshielding process, inject it, and then it causes the star of lacerations. Your healing touch automatically activates, and then you can activate it again, which doesn't slow down time, it freezes time. So you can perform the final injection. So like there's one time it happens with the plot, and then you can like double it.
Yes.
To get super time stop.
It doesn't communicate to you though that it will stack. You just kind of have to figure it out. But you've saved this awful man and killed the awful bug that was inside of him.
Yep. Like, you want him to face justice. That's why you say you do it.
Yeah. And this takes us to Z5, our final Naomi mission. She is at the IDOF lab when things start going bad, and someone comes down with what appears to be a regular Kiriaki strain, but there are Savato present.
And Dr. Blackwell there wants you to keep the big blue Savato bug alive while you seal them with the Karaki. While they come up with a serum, they'll stun the bugs, they can extract them and come up with a Savato countermeasure.
Yeah.
After the operation, Weaver is forced to evacuate. They didn't take her guilt samples, though, so she figures she can run off to Europe with them. Yeah. And be not a monster.
Yeah. She can go and be a good Ada Wong.
Starting the final chapter, 6, Dark Gospel. And this is the chapter, this starts with a summation of the final chapter of the DS game. Which is really weird. Like the structure of this ends up being paced very weird. Like it's about how Delphi ends. We've taken care of the beginning of the last chapter, we've taken care of the terrorist organization.
Yes. Yeah. And like what actually happened was you took out the sleeper cells. Blackwell insists on going to prison, and you do this raid on the actual stronghold, and the villain of the story, Adam, is dealt with just in a text box. Adam, with his whole philosophy, like he's this guy who's incredibly sick because he's started incubating the guilt inside himself, as he was also putting them into the bodies of orphans. Like he calls them.
He's 180 years old as well.
I forgot about that. Yeah. But they've been like kidnapping children, and calling them sinners. And like you had to go through just like a bunch of these chambers as Derek Stiles, almost like a jigsaw kind of thing with with Adam taunting you until you finally got to him and dealt with the boss strain that was inside of him. It is very strange to have that just like waved away, because it sounds like, even just like described in the text in the game, it sounds like a video game ass thing. Like, oh yes, there was a final dungeon where you went up against the first version of all of these things you've seen.
Yeah.
Cool, I guess.
I mean, it would have, like, what we get instead is also very weird. Like that makes sense. It felt like a climax to this story. Blackwell, who is the big bad guy of this, insists on serving out his prison term. He got a pardon though. Like, he's like, no, I'm repentant. But they give him a pardon for cooperating, which is ridiculous.
Yep. Do you know how many people died because of what you did, dude?
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, at the end of that, you eliminate him. He's basically like this 180-year-old corpse who's animated by guilt, and his body's taken into custody. Styles and Angie are requested by Caduceus Europe for a long-term assignment in Britain to work on a secret project. This feels very hinky. We're going to be working under Dr. Owen at the research lab, and it has all these bodies and tanks like a Resident Evil ending.
Yeah.
They're working on developing regenerative cells using information learned fighting the guilt.
Yeah. Which is immediately like both Styles and Angie are like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah. Don't do the dark science.
Please don't. Poison fruit from the poison tree, dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the director of Caduceus Europe here introduces us to Dr. Kineshima, known better to us as Dr. Weaver from the Z episodes. This is Naomi. She did indeed flee to Europe and is kind of working here, we find out, to do her penance for having contributed to Delphi and their work here. She can't work research full time because she's dealing with these cases of guilt that pop up, because she also has the healing touch. We have Styles now, so they can actually, research as well. They do research and heal people with these outstanding cases.
Yeah, they have multiple units. So a Tatari case comes in, and Dr. Weaver wants to watch your healing touch and see how it's different. These Tatari, they're the color matching guys, but instead of being the color, you just have to look at the gas they excrete to see which color they are. This is fine. During the course of the operations, though, Styles gets weaker and weaker, and he collapses.
Yes.
Lead us into something like, I think that if I was more attached to these characters, maybe this would be really cool. But 6-4, where Dr. Weaver Naomi operates on Styles.
Yes.
So the hunter has become the hunted. Through this.
Yes. It just, I think they were going for something like in the third Phoenix Wright game, where Edgeworth comes in and acts as a defense attorney for Phoenix. But possibly. No, I've not spent enough time with these people to have this matter an awful lot to me. Yeah.
And this is also not where the theme of the tragic flaw of doctors is they can't operate on themselves.
Right.
You think that would come up here, but that actually comes up later.
It does. Yeah. So this is where she confides in him as to her role in helping create guilt, and also, why she is using her healing touch here to get immunity. So Styles has both the Kyriaki and the Paraskevi strains. It's not pretty tough. You have to deal with the Kyriaki. You've done this 100 times before. The Paraskevi, this ends up being the problem because there is no margin for error. This is where they start on the heart.
Yeah. Yep. So you cannot chase them.
Yeah.
Caduceus Europe's director Miller takes Styles to the tank room and shows him the secret Z cell project. It's Adam's body, which is dead but not rotting. There are these neo cells that they're using as a regenerative treatment. So this is like basically a sequel to the first game, all contained in this chapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really weird. And we get to 6-6, the future of guilt. Where Hoffman, Fingerbeard, is disgusted to learn that the funding for the Z-Cell project comes from the military, meaning that there's no risk of sending men to war if they can fully recover.
Right. So we have this magical thing so they can all go and suffer, and then we just patch them back up with our miracle stuff and send them back out. There is no moral case for why this is a bad thing, for why that would be a bad thing to do.
Oops, all Wolverines.
Uh-oh. So Naomi is disgusted too. She considers the Z cells to be the 8th strain of guilt, and she knows that this is going to backfire. You just do not play with this.
Yep. And to show that this is no good, they bring a man who is treated with the Z cells, who seems fine, but then he coughs up a bunch of blood. The blood carries whatever made him sick. We had to operate on him, and we find a advanced form of the Pempty core, the shoot 'em up.
Yes.
Thing. To do a very long fight against these guys.
And then this is where we get to the mission that undid me. Fallen Heroes.
This sucks. This is hard.
Yeah.
This is also where I stopped.
Okay, cool. So I'm happy that we
yeah.
both made it to the same spot. This is the next to last mission. So what happens is, after this guy coughed out the blood, we have four of the major doctors here in the symposium who have been infected. And Dr. Owen has disappeared. He was the one who was supposed to be getting the serum for the serum from Adam's body. And Hoffman is working with Miller to get more serum. What makes this difficult is we have 10 total minutes to do 4 operations, back to back, switching between Styles and Naomi, trading off their healing touch. The problem is they can both only use their healing touch once. Like it's not once per operation or whatever. And it's 4 different strain of guilt that you have to do.
Yeah. So it's about mastering the first half of it so you can save your healing touch in the back half and making sure you have enough time for it. And it just took me too many tries to where I got sick of it.
Yeah, I timed this. I worked on this for 90 minutes, basically making no progress, failing several times, like in the last 20 seconds.
Yeah. Just a pain in the ass. And the next mission apparently is much easier, by reputation.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like the real climax, but it's not, limiting my resources and limiting my time is a way to increase that challenge. I just am over it.
Yeah.
I'm overdoing this and I'm over trying to do it faster at this point. And I'm also, the 6th chapter of plot feels superfluous. It feels like a pitch for a sequel.
Yep.
That's done in fast forward rather than anything else.
Yeah.
So what I watched on YouTube is Dr. Owen is taken into military custody. At this point, he was a Delphi agent, of course. That's why he was trying to bring it back with the Z cells. Adam's body has gone missing, leaving the way for sequels. And Dr. Hoffman is infected with the ultimate strain.
Yeah.
So this is where Hoffman says you should operate together. The fatal flaw of doctors is they can't operate on themselves. The way that I'm going to know that I'm a good doctor is if you're a good doctor. And I'm like, I barely talked to you, man.
Yeah.
Like you weren't like my mentor or anything. You were the grumpy guy who came in and like,
you told me not to do this. You told me not to be.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just a retread of the Savato fight from the last thing. Like I didn't play this. I just watched it, but it didn't look that different.
Right. It's just a very prolonged Savato fight that takes up most of the 10 minutes that are there. And yeah, when the bug leaves one area, it goes to the other surgeon. But again, you can only use the healing touch once, so it doesn't make that. That's really the only limit. It doesn't take advantage of the fact that there are 2 doctors very well.
No. Nope. And it ends. Everything's good. Research into the Z cells and guilt will stop, and there's a treaty that kind of enforces this. And Dr. Styles continues to rise in leadership at Caduceus, becoming the master surgeon of the world at the ripe old age of 25 on his next birthday.
Yeah.
And then the series continues, presumably, and there's more guilt and more super viruses.
Yes. You get new strains and Delphi comes back and all of that good stuff. But
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I think I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely no offense to Tara or anybody who really enjoys this game, but I was pretty done with it. It's all right.
Yeah. It gets points for novelty, right? For as far as that goes. I just kind of found myself, it's funny because I want to say that it retreats to something safe, and it's true, like I believe that, but the safe thing that it retreats to is this outlandish plot with terrorist bugs that are inside of people, doing stuff.
Safe for the medium.
Yeah, safe for the medium. It goes completely outlandish when what I wanted was just more of the grounded stuff. Like, I don't know, like let me apply some mesh to somebody's, insides, buddy. Yeah. Let me do an amputation. Like,
I would have liked a dorkier version of this for sure.
Yes.
And you and I are both in the pocket for dark viruses and sciences, dark science and viruses and shit. It's just not as interesting as other things with dark viruses and science and shit.
Yeah.
Like, Delphi is no Umbrella, in terms of like just general entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to say Umbrella is more realistic or like necessarily better written, but it's more entertaining at the very least. I just didn't find this virus very entertaining.
And like and the virus stuff, it also kind of like runs counter to the pitch of this, which is like, oh, this is a surgery sim on your system that has a new kind of control. Like this is a different kind of thing. Like it runs counter to the pitch by making it more of a video game. You know, like I want something that doesn't feel like a video game initially, that is inherently different, you know, at a basic level. And, you know, again, it just becomes safe.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of a disappointment. Like, I'm glad we did it. It's something I was glad I'd never played these before. I had this game for a long time, but I just never taken the plunge.
Yeah.
I'm glad I had the opportunity to check it out, but I'm not surprised that this kind of became a dead end. Like, it's unique, but I'm not thirsty for more of it.
Right. Right.
You know, glad we did it.
Same. So thank you, Tara.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Tara. Not a lot of Wii games we've done.
Yeah. And this is definitely a real Wii game. And this
Absolutely.
is a game that is, you know, I forget which one of us identified it, but it is in that Sega arcade corridor, you know?
Yes. Yeah. You know, score attack kind of stuff.
Yeah.
If you have anything to say about Trauma Center Second Opinion, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yes.
Or if you have things to say about the Magic Circle or Shadow of Mordor.
Yeah. The deadline for that is the 15th of March, the Ides, as it were. We are looking for responses that are both kind of brief and novel. We're looking for more specific observations than broad kind of reviews of the game itself.
Yeah. Also, if you have anything to say about April's games, which are Divinity Original Sin 2, Riven, the sequel to Myst, and Ratchet and Clank Into the Nexus. Is that the one?
That's the one.
Yep. Hit us up by the Ides of April.
Yes, the common phrase, the Ides of April. Yeah. And those will be featured on the Dispatch episodes. We will announce what we're going to be playing in May in the Dispatch episode of this month. So be sure to listen in for that. Other things you can do besides contributing for those is to go to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv, get episodes of this show a whole week early, and get full versions of the premium episodes that we put out every month.
Yes, absolutely. So like Shadow of Mordor is going to be that. Ratchet and Clank is going to be that. Many great episodes are that. You can also sponsor an episode like Tara did. There's something you would like us to play. You can do that through there. In addition to getting a host of other benefits, getting access to the Slack, episodes early, bonus episodes, things like that. You can leave us a rating or review on Apple Podcast or Podcast Addict or anywhere podcast reviews are found. We really appreciate that. And I think that's about it.
I think so.
Yeah. Until next time, what can they watch out for, Cole?
Watch out for your lung bugs.